You know that feeling when you meet someone who seems to understand you on a level nobody else ever has? They finish your sentences, share your deepest values, see the real you behind the walls you've built. Feels like magic. Until 3 months later, you're questioning your own sanity, walking on eggshells, and wondering how someone who seems so perfect became your worst nightmare.
Here's something they don't tell you about being an INFJ. You're not just rare. You're a walking target for a specific type of predator. Sophisticated manipulators who've studied your psychology like a textbook and know exactly which buttons to push. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. Once you understand the game, you stop being a player and become an observer.
Before we start, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss any of our weekly deep dives into the world of personality types. And if you're looking for a deeper understanding of yourself and your INFJ personality, browse our favorite INFJ products in the description. And click the link in the comments to take our favorite free personality test. The INFJ psychological profile that attracts predators. Before we dive into the specific traps, let's talk about why INFJs end up in the crosshairs of manipulators in the first place. It's not your fault, but understanding this makes everything else click into place.
You have an almost supernatural ability to understand others' emotions and motivations. You see people not just as they are, but as they could be. You spot potential in everyone, and you genuinely want to help people become their best selves. That's beautiful, honestly. But manipulators see this trait as an open door.
They recognize that your empathy runs deep, that you'll give second chances, third chances, and sometimes even more. Here's another thing. INFJs tend to be private about their own struggles, while being incredibly supportive of others. You're the friend everyone calls during a crisis, but you rarely reach out when you're the one drowning.
This creates an imbalance that toxic people exploit without hesitation.
Your intuition is both your greatest strength and, paradoxically, what makes you vulnerable. You can sense when something's off, but because you're so understanding, you often talk yourself out of your own gut feelings. You think maybe I'm being too judgmental, or everyone deserves compassion. And that's where they get you. Your complexity makes you think in layers. You can hold multiple truths at once. Someone can be both hurtful and hurting. They can be both cruel and wounded. Your ability to see these nuances makes it hard for you to write people off, even when they consistently harm you. There's also your rarity. You spent your whole life feeling different, misunderstood, too intense, too much. So when someone claims to finally understand you, you're so relieved that you don't question whether that understanding is genuine. Because you're so guarded about your inner world, you have relatively few people you're truly close to. This makes you more invested in the relationships you do have. You're less likely to walk away from a toxic dynamic if it means losing one of your few deep connections. Your idealism means you believe in the potential for good in everyone. This is a beautiful quality, but it means you'll often stay in situations long past the point where others would have left. You keep hoping that the person will live up to the potential you see in them, even when all evidence suggests they won't. Manipulators study these patterns. They know you see potential in everyone. They know you'll sacrifice yourself to help others. They know your empathy runs so deep it's almost a superpower, and they're counting on you not knowing what they know. Understanding these vulnerabilities isn't about blaming yourself. It's about arming yourself with knowledge. When you know why something works on you, you can defend against it. The core blind spot, when your greatest strength becomes your weakness. Let's talk about the psychological mechanism that turns your greatest gift into your biggest vulnerability. Your empathy isn't just feeling bad when others hurt. You actually absorb other people's emotions like a sponge. Their pain literally becomes your pain. This makes it incredibly difficult to maintain boundaries when someone is emotional, because protecting yourself feels like abandoning them. Manipulators exploit this by ramping up their emotions whenever you try to set limits. They know that your nervous system can't distinguish between their manufactured distress and genuine pain.
So when you try to say no, they flood you with emotional intensity until your empathy overrides your better judgment.
Here's where it gets really insidious. Your pattern-seeking brain is always trying to make sense of inconsistent behavior. When someone treats you well one day and terribly the next, your mind goes into overdrive, trying to solve the puzzle. You think, if I can just figure out what triggers the good behavior versus the bad, I can fix this. But the inconsistency is the strategy. They're conditioning you to accept crumbs of decent treatment and be grateful for basic respect. Your ability to hold multiple perspectives becomes a trap when you use it to rationalize red flags instead of trusting your initial instincts. You'll think, well, they had a rough childhood, or they're under a lot of stress right now. You create elaborate explanations for their behavior when the simplest explanation is usually correct. They're choosing to treat you poorly because it serves them. Your idealism makes you see potential everywhere, but manipulators don't want to reach their potential. They want a constant source of emotional labor without having to change. They position themselves as transformation projects, knowing you can't resist getting involved. The difference between healthy empathy and codependent empathy is crucial here. Healthy empathy allows you to understand someone's pain without making it your responsibility to fix. Codependent empathy makes you feel guilty for having boundaries and responsible for other people's emotional states. Manipulators train you into codependent empathy by making their emotional regulation your job. Suddenly, you're walking on eggshells, monitoring their moods, adjusting your behavior to keep them stable. You become addicted to those moments when they're happy because the relief feels so intense. Your depth becomes an entry point when people use vulnerability exchanges to build your psychological profile. They share deep personal information early on, creating false intimacy. You feel like they've trusted you with their secrets, so it's only fair to share yours. But they're not sharing to connect. They're sharing to extract. Every piece of information you give them gets filed away for future use. Later, when conflicts arise, all that information you shared in confidence gets weaponized against you. Traditional boundary advice fails for INFJs because it doesn't account for your empathic absorption. Telling you to just say no ignores the fact that other people's emotions literally flood your system. You need strategies that work with your wiring, not against it. The core blind spot is this. You assume everyone processes emotions the way you do. You think everyone feels as deeply, cares as much, struggles with the same internal conflicts. So when someone shows you calculated cruelty, you search for the hidden pain driving it. Sometimes there is no hidden pain. Sometimes people are simply selfish, and they've learned that your empathy is an effective tool for getting what they want. Recognizing this doesn't make you cynical. It makes you wise. Your empathy remains a superpower when it's protected by awareness and boundaries. The goal isn't to shut down your gifts. It's to share them with people who will honor them instead of exploit them. The 6 psychological traps that exploit this blind spot. Now let's break down the specific traps manipulators use to exploit your empathic nature. These aren't random tactics. They're calculated strategies designed to target your cognitive functions and emotional wiring. Understanding each one gives you the power to recognize them the moment someone tries to deploy them. Trap 1, the emotional mirror. This is when someone reflects your own values, dreams, and emotions back at you with scary accuracy. When a manipulator first meets you, they're not really showing you who they are. Instead, they're studying you. They're picking up on the things you care about, the causes you're passionate about, the values you hold dear. Then, like a chameleon, they start mirroring all of it back to you. Suddenly, you meet someone who gets you, like nobody else ever has. They love the same obscure books you do. They have the same dreams about making the world a better place. They even finish your sentences. Feels like destiny, right? But here's the catch. This isn't real connection. It's calculated mimicry. The person isn't actually sharing your values. They're performing them. INFJs, with your deep desire for authentic connection, fall for this harder than almost any other personality type. Why does this work so well on you?
because you spend most of your life feeling misunderstood. You're complex. You think in layers, and most people never quite grasp what makes you tick. So when someone appears to understand you completely, it's like water in the desert. The emotional mirror serves a purpose for the manipulator. Once they've got you hooked on this feeling of being understood, they can start asking for things. Small favors at first, then bigger ones. They know you'll help because you believe in the connection you share. Except the connection was never real to begin with. Watch out for people who seem too perfect for you too quickly. Real connection builds over time through shared experiences and mutual vulnerability. If someone's matching your energy on every single level within days or weeks, your intuition is probably trying to tell you something.
Trap 2. The savior complex activation. You have a natural desire to help others grow and heal. You see wounded people and think, I can help them. Manipulators know this about you, and they weaponize it. This trap involves someone presenting themselves as broken, misunderstood, or damaged in a way that specifically appeals to your healing nature. They'll share their traumatic past, their struggles, their pain. And they'll do it in a way that makes you feel like you're the only one who can save them. Here's where it gets tricky. Some of their pain might even be real, but the manipulation comes in how they use it. Instead of taking responsibility for their own healing, they make you responsible for it. They position themselves as your project, your purpose, your mission. You start thinking things like, if I just love them enough, they'll change. Or, they've been through so much, I can't abandon them now. Before you know it, you're pouring all your energy into someone who's taking everything and giving nothing back. The savior complex trap works because it ties into your core identity as an INFJ. You're a helper. You're a healer. You believe in transformation and growth. So when someone presents themselves as a transformation waiting to happen, you can't resist getting involved. But here's the hard truth. You cannot save someone who doesn't want to save themselves. Manipulators don't actually want to change. They want a constant source of attention, validation, and emotional labor. Real people who are working on themselves will take responsibility for their healing. They'll go to therapy. They'll do the work. They won't make you their unpaid emotional support system or refusing to change their behavior. Trap 3. The guilt trip masterclass. You have a strong moral compass and a deep sense of responsibility. You feel things intensely, including guilt. Manipulators exploit this by making you feel responsible for their emotions, their choices, and their well-being. This trap shows up in countless ways.
They might say things like, after everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me. Or, I was finally starting to feel happy, and now you're ruining it.
They twist situations so that you end up feeling guilty for having boundaries, for saying no, or for prioritizing your own needs. The guilt trip works on you because you're always examining your own behavior. You're introspective by nature, and you genuinely don't want to hurt anyone. So when someone suggests you're being selfish or unkind, you immediately start questioning yourself. Here's how manipulators layer this trap. First, they do nice things for you, things you didn't ask for and maybe didn't even want. Then, when you don't reciprocate in the exact way they expect, they use those unrequested favors as ammunition. They also weaponize your empathy against you. When you try to address their hurtful behavior, they flip it around and make themselves the victim. Suddenly, you're not allowed to be hurt because they're more hurt that you're upset with them. It's emotional gymnastics. And INFJs, with your ability to see multiple perspectives, can get tangled up in these mental loops. The antidote to the guilt trip trap is remembering this. You are not responsible for other people's emotions. You're responsible for your own behavior. Yes, but their reaction to your boundaries, that's on them. Trap 4, information extraction. You're naturally private people, but you're also incredibly open when you trust someone. This creates a vulnerability that skilled manipulators exploit through what I call the information extraction game. Early in the relationship, the manipulator shares deep personal information about themselves. They're vulnerable, raw, honest, or so it seems. This creates a sense of intimacy and reciprocity.
You feel like they've trusted you with their secrets, so it's only fair to share yours.
So you open up. You tell them about your fears, your insecurities, your past hurts, your triggers. You share the things that make you feel vulnerable. And in the moment, it feels good. Feels like connection. But here's what you don't realize. They're not sharing to connect. They're sharing to extract. Every piece of information you give them is being filed away for future use. They're building a psychological profile of you, identifying your weak spots, figuring out exactly which buttons to push. Later, when conflicts arise, or when you try to establish boundaries, suddenly all that information you shared in confidence gets weaponized against you. They throw your insecurities back in your face. They trigger you deliberately. They use your own words to manipulate you into staying or complying. The information extraction game is particularly effective on you because you crave deep, meaningful connections. Surface-level relationships don't satisfy you. You want to really know people and be known by them. So when someone offers that depth early on, you grab onto it. But real intimacy develops slowly. It's built on consistent behavior over time, not on dramatic confessions in the first few weeks. If someone's dumping their entire life story on you right away and pushing you to do the same, be cautious. Trap 5. Hot and cold intermittent reinforcement. This is where things get really psychological. Intermittent reinforcement is one of the most powerful manipulation tactics out there, and you're particularly susceptible to it. Here's the pattern. The manipulator alternates between hot and cold, between amazing and awful, between present and absent. One day they're showering you with attention, affection, and validation. The next day they're distant, critical, or completely unavailable. Then they're back to being wonderful again. This inconsistency creates an addiction-like response in your brain. When someone is consistently good to you, you know what to expect. When someone is consistently bad, you can walk away. But when someone is unpredictably both, your brain goes into overdrive, trying to figure out what triggers the good behavior versus the bad. You start analyzing everything you did differently on the days they were warm versus the days they were cold. You modify your behavior, trying to earn more of the good days. You feel incredible relief and joy when they're nice again after being distant. For you, this trap is especially dangerous because of your pattern recognition abilities. Your brain is wired to find meaning and make connections. So when someone's behavior is inconsistent, you can't help but try to solve the puzzle. You think, if I can just figure out what's going on, I can fix this. The truth is, there's nothing to figure out. The inconsistency is the strategy. They're conditioning you to accept crumbs of good treatment and to be grateful for basic decency. Trap 6, future faking fantasy. This last trap is perhaps the cruelest because it hijacks your hopes and dreams. Future faking is when someone makes elaborate promises about the future with no intention of following through. You're idealists. You think long-term. You invest in relationships with the future in mind. When someone paints a picture of a beautiful future together, whether that's a romantic relationship, a business partnership, or a friendship, you start building toward that vision. The manipulator will talk about plans you'll make together, trips you'll take, the life you'll build. These conversations feel intimate and exciting. They feel like commitment. But here's the thing. Words are cheap. The future never arrives because the manipulator never intended for it to. The promises serve a purpose in the present. They keep you invested. They keep you hopeful. Whenever you try to talk about current issues in the relationship, they redirect you to the future. I know things are tough right now, but just wait until we move to that new city. Everything will be different. The future becomes a carrot they dangle to keep you moving forward, but you never actually reach it. You fall for future faking because you're naturally forward-thinking. You can envision potential so clearly that sometimes the vision feels as real as the present. When someone shares your vision and seems to be working toward it with you, it creates a powerful bond. Breaking that bond means letting go not just of the person, but of the entire future you imagined. Here's how to protect yourself from this trap. Watch what people do, not what they say. Are they taking concrete steps toward the future they're describing, Or are they just talking about it? The defense system, turning your blind spot into radar. Now that you know the traps, let's talk about how to turn this knowledge into your ultimate defense system. The good news is that your greatest vulnerabilities can become your strongest protections once you know what to look for. First, trust your initial gut reaction before your empathy kicks in to rationalize it. That first moment when you meet someone, your intuition picks up on something your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. Maybe they seem too eager to share personal information. Maybe their stories don't quite add up. Maybe something about their energy feels off. Your empathy will immediately start making excuses. Maybe they're just nervous. Maybe they've been hurt before. Maybe I'm being too judgmental. Stop right there. That initial instinct is pure data, before your cognitive functions start filtering it through your desire to see the best in people. Implement the 30-day rule for new relationships. This gives you time to observe patterns before emotional investment clouds your judgment. Manipulators rely on love bombing and intensity to bypass your natural caution. They want you emotionally hooked before you have time to think clearly. During those 30 days, watch for consistency between words and actions. Do they follow through on small promises? Do they respect minor boundaries? Do they take accountability when they make mistakes? These early behaviors predict how they'll handle bigger issues later. Learn to distinguish between genuine vulnerability and calculated emotional manipulation. Real vulnerability is shared gradually with appropriate timing and boundaries. Manipulative vulnerability is dumped on you early, often with dramatic timing designed to create false intimacy. Genuine people will respect your pace and won't pressure you to reciprocate immediately. They'll understand if you need time to process what they've shared. Manipulators will use their vulnerability as leverage, making you feel obligated to match their level of disclosure. Create emotional boundaries that protect without shutting down your gifts. This means recognizing that you can feel compassion for someone without making their problems your responsibility. You can understand their pain without absorbing it into your own nervous system. Practice the phrase "that doesn't work for me," without feeling obligated to justify or explain. You don't need to provide a detailed reason for every boundary. Healthy people will respect your limits without demanding explanations. Develop your pattern recognition system into an early warning detection network. Your brain naturally looks for patterns, so give it specific things to track. Notice how people handle conflict. Notice whether they take accountability or always blame others. Notice if they respect your time and energy or constantly demand more. Pay attention to how they talk about other people in their life. If they consistently paint themselves as the victim in every relationship conflict, that's a pattern. If they have no close long-term friendships, that's information. If everyone else in their life is supposedly toxic or crazy, that's a red flag. Maintain outside perspectives for reality checking. Manipulators often try to isolate you from other people who might point out concerning behaviors. Keep your support system strong and actually use it. When something feels off, run it by someone you trust. Your close friends and family know you well. If multiple people express concern about someone new in your life, take that seriously. They're seeing things from outside the emotional fog that manipulation creates. Build immunity through understanding the psychology behind each trap. When you know that intermittent reinforcement is designed to create addiction-like responses, you're less likely to get caught in the cycle. When you understand that future faking exploits your long-term thinking, you can focus on present behavior instead of promised tomorrows. Remember that manipulators study your responses and adapt their approach accordingly. They're watching to see which tactics work on you and which don't. But when you understand their playbook, you can recognize the game even when they switch strategies. Create a personal red flag checklist based on your specific vulnerabilities. Maybe you're particularly susceptible to the savior complex activation. Write down the warning signs so you can catch yourself before getting pulled in. Maybe you tend to rationalize guilt trips. Have a friend you can call when you start questioning your own boundaries. Your empathy doesn't need to be turned off. It needs to be informed. When you combine your natural compassion with strategic awareness, you become almost impossible to manipulate. You can still help people and form deep connections, but you'll do it from a place of choice rather than exploitation.
The goal isn't to become cynical or closed off. It's to become discerning. There's a difference between being open-hearted and being naive. You can maintain your beautiful qualities while protecting yourself from people who would abuse them.
Your empathy remains your superpower when it's protected by awareness and boundaries. The shift from unconscious vulnerability to conscious choice changes everything. You're no longer walking through the world as an easy target. You're moving with intention and wisdom. These 6 traps work because they exploit your greatest strengths. But now you see them for what they are: calculated strategies designed to bypass your natural defenses. When someone tries to mirror your values too perfectly, you'll recognize the performance. When someone positions themselves as your healing project, you'll see the trap. The manipulators are counting on you not knowing what they know. But now you do. You understand the game, and that changes the entire dynamic. You're no longer a player being moved around the board. You're an observer who can see the strategy behind every move. Remember that choosing yourself isn't selfish. Protecting your peace isn't cruel. Requiring people to treat you well isn't asking too much. These are basic standards that everyone deserves, including you, especially you. Implement these defense strategies immediately. Trust your gut. Slow down new relationships. Maintain your support system. Watch patterns, not just incidents. Your awareness is your armor, and your boundaries are your shield. You deserve connections that feel good, not connections that require constant emotional labor and self-sacrifice. Now you have the tools to create them. If you want to continue the journey to understanding yourself or an INFJ in your life, click either of the following videos where we continue to unlock the secrets of the INFJ personality type.